All right, guys, we're just going to be watching here in a minute. I'm just going to get some more eyes on this here in just a second here. But this is protest happening all over. I think this is right now, mostly Minnesota, but there could be other cities involved here. I haven't looked completely, but this is a very large protest. So we're just going to put out the word here right now. So just hold tight with me here on this. I'll get the sound here up and just running in here in just a minute. Oops. I'll let you guys hear some of the sounds in the background. We got some news coverage, commentary here while I do this.
We'll bring those to the audience in real time. In Minneapolis, Jamie, the days since that shooting have included competing official accounts about what happened. We saw the release of additional video angles that people are using to argue very different conclusions. Really, it depends who you're talking to. Many people see many different things when they watch this thing play out. From a law enforcement standpoint, Jamie, what is the most important fact that investigators need to establish as they're in the early days of an investigation like this?
Well, I mean, obviously, the first thing they want to do is see if this shooting was within compliance of the policy, of the shooting policy with DHS, right? You want to make sure that that ICE agent was compliant within policy. In terms of evidence, Austin, I mean, you want to look at the video. We're seeing competing videos that you just mentioned, but from a trained investigator's eye, all of those videos are important. It may show an angle that perhaps would justify the shooting. Another angle could show that it could justify not shooting this woman that was allegedly driving over an ICE agent. So, all the above. But here's the other thing, too. We've all seen the video from the body cam footage from this ICE agent. It pretty much shows where she was looking as she was driving forward. If you play that video, concentrate where her eyes are just before the shooting. And that's a telltale sign that she was driving straight, she was looking straight. And as an investigator, that looks very bad on her, in my opinion.
What I'm going to do here, we do have the video in our system. We've got the full thing. And as you've alluded to, there's a good chance that many people have already seen this clip. And if people will bear with me here, I'm basically going through our system. I'm pulling this video in. Let's play this out, Jamie. This is a 37-second long clip. Let's play this uninterrupted for a moment, just so everybody's on the same page as us.
All right, so they're just showing the footage of them confronting the police because they literally were it's kind of weird the way they did that. Oh wow. Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird. This is why they're just saying this is going to cause riots, like what just happened. But this is all the footage here in the background here, what you can see going on here. I'm just posting right now on social media to let everybody know we're live here. So just hold tight for just a moment. And then I'll get to what you guys are saying here.
this, and it becomes mandatory.
So, local leaders in Minnesota have publicly called for transparency as community anger has been growing in the area. What does a credible and trustworthy use of force investigation typically look like in the first 72 hours?
You want to gather all that video footage, and like we were talking the other day, everyone has a cell phone, and especially if you're there protesting ICE, they're all video and they're live on platforms. So they're going to come through all the data. They're going to collect as much data as they can in terms of video, but more importantly, they want to hear what orders were given or what commands were given prior to the shot. So, that's the first 101 that you want to do in that investigation. And then you want to start interviewing eye and ear witnesses. I had seen a Ring doorbell camera today that I'd never seen on one of the platforms that showed clearly what took place leading up to the fatal shooting. So, they're going to go to door to collect all that video and examine that, much like they did at Brown University. That helped solve that case. So all the above, but more importantly, they want to interview not only ICE agents, they want to interview the protesters to get their perspective. And here it comes down to perception, Austin. What did those folks perceive prior to that shot?
Protests in Minneapolis have swelled from smaller gatherings we saw earlier this week. Gatherings, but they weren't as large as what we're seeing today. We're seeing much larger crowds. And again, I'll pull up, this is a live feed we're looking at right now, but I'll play some video from earlier in the day when we had the helicopter above it. Just gives you an idea of how many people are turning out to these demonstrations. We don't have a camera on, we don't have a camera in the sky at the moment. We'll let you know if we do see that, but I need to ask you, with arrests being reported after clashes near sites believed to be connected to ICE operations, when a protest is growing quickly, what are the most effective de-escalation tactics police can use without compromising safety in general?
That's a great question. Not to escalate these protesters. Don't go out and banter with them. You want to keep that crowd controlled. You want to have a designated area, if you will. And you want to kind of keep the protesters funneled in one area or going down one street so it doesn't affect the entire community or city. What I hope I don't see are police officers in riot gear. Forces may be okay on the perimeter, but you want to be low key. You don't want to go in there and basically escalate something that doesn't need to be escalated. These folks, for the most part, they look peaceful. Whether you agree with these protesters or disagree, Austin, it's their First Amendment right to protest. And, the other thing is law enforcement's there to protect the protesters from anti-protesters. So it's a multifaceted.
Okay, so this is some news, some commentary on what's happening right now because of the escalation in protesters now happening. It seems that it could turn into something much larger. But there is a lot of protesting going on right now. So we're kind of watching a few different feeds here, and I wanted to put a couple other ones up. But for right now, we're just going to kind of listen in on and see what they're saying here, because I'm kind of curious to see what they're saying.
Tonight, we'll start seeing some people get on the microphone at some of these events. That's typically a facet of these protests. As protests spread to other cities, Jamie, police departments, they're facing similar challenges with crowd control, traffic disruption, and the risk of outside agitators or, in some cases, opportunistic crime. What should be the primary operational priority for departments that are preparing for large demonstrations anywhere in the country?
I mean, first of all, you've got to keep the protesters and your community safe. And, they're going to steer the traffic pattern away from this protest. No matter what city it is. So you don't, obviously you don't want cars running through that protest. More importantly, communication. I can assure you law enforcement and the officials have gotten with the organizers of these protests and they've came to a common ground, if you will. And I've been part of these. So you're going to have an agreement to where, okay, we're going to lead the protest down 2 or 3 streets, circle back, and you're going to stay in that area, right? But here's the problem. We always see these bad agitating actors from both sides that come out and interject themselves in a peaceful protest. And that's when it becomes unpeaceful, Austin. So, these people are, look at them. I mean, they're they're protesting. There's no violence. There's no one confronting anyone. They're voicing their First Amendment right. But my concern is after it gets dark, we don't know what's going to happen with these agitators. That's my biggest concern.
There have been reports of injuries during the Minneapolis protests. Jamie, can an injury shift tactics and temperament on both sides?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where law enforcement, and we're well trained to this now. We've had so many of these civil unrest and these protests over the past, 10 years that they've pretty much mastered controlling the protest or controlling the safety, if you will. As far as injuries, they're going to, let's say you have an injured person and an agitator that's not really connected to the original protest, but they come in and interject themselves. Law enforcement's going to go in and they're going to pluck that agitator out of the crowd so no one else is injured, number one. But number two, you have the anti-protest crowd that's going to be out there. I know a couple cities, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, and I think LA are going to have counter protesters. So that's where the trouble starts. But they're just going to be all hands on deck from the police angle to try to keep those folks as separated as possible.
What are you watching for the rest of the weekend? I mean, we've got our eyes on these protests. Is there anything else that you're keeping an eye on?
My biggest fear, I keep saying it, repeating myself, the bad actors or the agitators that aren't part. And like I said earlier, Austin, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with these folks, it's their right. And I welcome them to come and protest. But here's the deal. It's not part of your rights to go out and agitate or cause problems, or an anti-protester going into one of these peaceful protests just because you don't like it and start yelling and screaming. That's when the problems begin. And that's really what I look for as it gets dark. And especially tomorrow, these are going to be nationwide.
My adult children live there. They pay all the bills for that house.
So
and then
you always have the bad apples, and let's hope that law enforcement's playing a heads-up game and they can find these people and get them out of the crowd before any violence.
Jamie Copenhaver is a law enforcement expert. We appreciate you, Jamie. Take care.
Always, Austin. Thank you.
Of course. All right, the time in the nation's capital, about 5:10, a live look at the White House. Let's hit a quick break. Our coverage continuing in a moment.
Okay, so we're just kind of looking at some more live feeds here. There's a lot of live feeds, and it is spreading to different parts of the country, which is also what he had, concerns about, that it could turn into something much worse. And, bad actors, he was talking about trying to take advantage of the situation, which would be possibly even provocateurs, people that are from other countries that might be interested in trying to destabilize a protest, kind of similar to what's going on in Iran. There's obviously there's agents that are there that are trying to facilitate even more protests inside of Iran. So we could actually find that same type of thing happening here if we're not careful. Let's see what this one is. Yeah, I'm just looking at different feeds here that are showing what's going on here. Yeah, some of these protests they're flying the Iranian flag from under the Shah. So you got messaging going out now as well here in America about the whole Iranian stuff. There's a big protest going on inside of, I think it's the UK or Ireland. Let's see. Thousands of Irish farmers are protesting the Morocco trade deal. And basically the police are coming out and just confiscating their equipment because they're coming out in their farm equipment. And this is an attack on farmers all over too. It's not just in Europe. It's happening here in America too. And you have to wonder why or what is really up. Is it coordinated effort to control food? Once you control the food, you control the people, right? Well, U.S. military is conducting airstrikes right now in Syria against quote-unquote ISIS. So that's happening right now. Lots of assets are now going over into the Middle Eastern region from the U.S. and in preparation for what many say is going to be an attack on Iran. And Israel is not engaging their northern border, and they've had opportunity for a few weeks now, and they haven't done it because, from what I'm hearing, is that they don't want to open up a second front. This front that they know is coming is going to be the Iranian attacks. So they believe that I think Iran is going to, is going to respond in this moment. They're going to have some kind of conflict that's going to erupt. And are the Americans going to be there present when it really goes down? That's where they're staging and getting prepared for some kind of conflict. Now, Iran, they're kind of up against the ropes, and you would think that they would be ready to do something before the coalition gathers. And I say coalition, I just mean America and all of its forces, because they're on their way. And they're going to intervene. They're going to be doing something here soon. And if Iran really does have any kind of interest to try to gain some kind of leverage, and they know this is it for them because their country is literally looking like it's falling, and it may be just propaganda too, in the way that they're trying to frame it on live TV. But that has an effect on people's feelings and thoughts that could push many people in the direction of actually going about to bringing down the downfall. And that's exactly what's happening. So you're getting this momentum of coverage, and this could very well be what's going on here in America too. The coverage creates its own momentum. Media actually facilitates unrest and discontent and gives people an outlet to vent, right? And by venting, they create that momentum, which ultimately causes civil unrest, which could literally affect government, critical infrastructure, etc. And I think that's why the U.S. has prepared for mass protests all across America. Not just protests, but I think they're also preparing for other events to happen. This is why January 1st, the laws or orders that Trump had signed previously about activating National Guard in all these different states, there was a special order that he signed that had to do with quick response National Guard teams of 500 to be deployed anywhere in the United States or territories at a moment's notice. And they're called quick response. So 500 strong units for what? What are they expecting? Is this domestic issues or is it possible in preparation for foreign involvement that could ultimately be taking advantage of these moments of discontent and protest? This is very interesting to me that this is happening right at this moment. And you got to kind of wonder if there's not going to be some kind of backlash here at home when all these things start happening in Israel or in Iran, which really could be Israel too, because Iran could launch a preemptive strike. I'm expecting something to happen imminent right now in Israel and or Iran. I think that the Iranians could try to do it what they call the preemptive strike to try to throw off balance the U.S. and Israel, because they already know there's going to be a conflict. And I think that's already understood, unless the Iranian leadership has already prepared for the evacuation of their post, and that they're literally just going to leave the country, which I don't think that they will. I think that they're going to go down with the ship, if you know what I mean. I think that they're going to try to fight, even though they know that it's potentially going to be a losing battle, because who knows if America uses nukes. I've also speculated that the U.S. could literally use tactical nukes on the missile cities that house these hypersonic missiles, that missile technology that Iran has. And in order for them to stop those missiles from being launched, they would have to somehow disable these underground facilities. And the only way they could do it, if there is a possibility that that could happen, would have to be a nuke. Because I don't think even bunker busters would be able to penetrate these mountainous facilities. The Iranians built these underground missile cities in preparation for a conflict with the U.S. So they made them to spec in what they expected to be a confrontation in what they believe to be their last days. Because the Iranians, especially their theocracy that it is, has a very apocalyptic or messianic end time kind of mindset, that they believe they're going to usher in their Mahdi, which is their Messiah, through a massive war, that they believe that they have been given this special time in history to do and to bring about the Mahdi. By what? By confrontation with the nations and ultimate sacrifice of their own, maybe even their own country in that way, because this is what they believe that their destiny is. This is the Iranians. So you're talking about the Shia Muslim beliefs in their eschatological view of the last days. And so if that is true, then you're talking about Muslims that are of a mindset that they believe that they're fulfilling end time prophecy, that they're going to give even up their country, possibly by pulling the trigger on hypersonic missiles that potentially could have. Because remember when Trump got really upset at Putin for using the N-word? He called it the N-word. He was very upset about Putin using the N-word. And what did Putin say? This was probably about, 4 or 5 months ago. Putin had made a statement that any country, he didn't say Russia, but he said any country could supply Iran with a nuclear warhead that would be easily delivered and used on their platform of hypersonic missile that could not be stopped. And it probably would be a tactical type of warhead. It wouldn't be, I don't think, an ICBM, because I don't think that the Iranians have ICBMs, or even mid. They may have the mid-range ones, but even still, even if it was just a tactical, those missiles can't be stopped, from what I understand. Even with the Iron Dome or Patriot missile battery systems, I don't think that they can stop hypersonics. And if they were tipped with an N-word that Trump was very upset about, if you'll remember the statement, we talked about that a while back. I felt that was a threat from Russia and or China for one of their allies, that they could potentially easily get a nuclear warhead or nuclear warheads that were tactical. And what was really strange about that was when that all happened, a lot of attention was given to some of these transport planes that came into Iran. I believe this was right around the time when the 12-day war took place, or thereafter. It might have been right before. I don't know. It was somewhere in the vicinity of the 12-day war when all these statements were being made. And I remember that it was connected to these statements by Putin and these transport planes that came in. So what we're seeing here in America and what we're seeing right now in Iran with the uprising and the protests and the potential collapse of Iranian government, they're blaming the U.S. and they're blaming Israel. And they said that they're now at war they've declared war in the last 2 days against the U.S. and against Israel. So Israel's on a heightened state of alert. I have to wonder if not the U.S. should we not be, preparing for even domestic events that could potentially, and I don't doubt that Iran hasn't already war gamed this out. If there ever was a conflict with the U.S., what they would do. Obviously, they can't just shoot a missile into the U.S. I don't think they have the range to get here, but they have asymmetrical warfare tactics. They're great hackers. They could hack our grid or some of our systems that, from what I understand, they have great hacking techniques, internet type hackers, and they do have drone technology. And if there is drones, even smaller drones that are easily, like I said, if they had agents here, and you have to assume, I think it would be wise for America to assume that there's enemies of America that have come across our porous border and that would love to do harm or cause maximum chaos at a time when we're at war with another country here at home, trying to cause maximum chaos here. I think we should be very, very aware of what's happening right now, hyper vigilant, and people should be paying attention to their environment, especially if you're in a city, a large city, or even a smaller city. I think you should always be very, very aware of your environment and surroundings. This is a green cup. That's why you can see through it. So I'm looking at some of your guys' comments right now. Carl Love Stevens says, I have faith in Jesus Christ to remove his body from the prior to the tribulation. See, now I have a little problem with that, Carl, because tribulation may be in fact our lot, as Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation. And the tribulation of those days, it talks about the revealing or unveiling of who the Antichrist is right before the falling away. So there's a falling away that takes place first, before the day of the Lord. It's very clear in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the day of the Lord will not come until the falling away or the apostasy takes place, and that man of lawlessness or the son of perdition is revealed, right, until he is actually unveiled. And I think that that's happening. I think there's a great falling. And I think the falling away is basically errors in doctrinal thinking and lifestyle, that they really don't have a relationship with Christ. It's mostly name only, faith or religion, and it's not a heartfelt reality or a heart realized reality of a true relationship with Christ. So this whole facade of religion begins to fall apart. You start seeing leaders. I mean, did you see what's that guy's name? Oh gosh, it was a very big time Christian leader, author. He's in his 80s or almost 80s, and very well respected. I mean, above board, written 15 books that have totaled 15 million copies. I forget how many books he's written. Philip Yancey is his name, and you're seeing the disillusionment of many Christians because this man had confessed to a extramarital affair that he was having for 8 years. And this man is a paragon of virtue and, orthodox teaching. So you're seeing this this disillusionment amongst those that are in the church. You're seeing the falling away. I really believe that's happening, and it's been happening for quite a while. I mean, just look at the TBN scandals and the God TV scandal, and now you've got Daystar scandal. You've got people like Philip Yancey, some major iconic leaders that are now falling in the midst of the public spectacle. And so Christians that have some kind of outward form of godliness are just saying, just save me from any pain or suffering. But I kind of think that the pre-tribulation rapture belief is more of just trying to save oneself rather than letting the Lord deliver you, even in the midst of the fiery furnace. Remember what they said, our God will deliver us, but if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down. And obviously Jesus, God did not deliver them out of the fiery furnace. They were in it. They were in it. And though some Christians may say, well, the Bible says that he's going to save us from the hour of temptation that's going to come upon the whole world. Yeah, the hour of temptation or the hour of tribulation and temptation has to do with those who have denied Christ, those who have taken the mark of the beast, those who are not sealed. You can still be in the midst of the tribulation and the judgments that are coming down upon the earth, but God can protect you in the midst of it. Now, if you're fearful that he's not going to protect you in the midst of the judgments that are coming upon the whole world, then maybe there's something wrong with your relationship, right? That's why people, I think, have that, just get me out of here. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see anything terrible happen. And that mindset to me is like more of escapism. Jacob's trouble, definitely. The 7-year tribulation is God's wrath. Now, what is God's wrath? Can I ask you a question of what is God's wrath? Is it a nuclear bomb going off and destroying like a whole country? Would that be considered God's wrath? Like, what is God's wrath? Just define for me, what is God's wrath, Carl? What would be considered in your mind to be God's wrath? I'm just trying to get an idea. Like, is being burnt at the stake God's wrath? Is being dipped in hot oil God's wrath? Is having your head cut off God's wrath? Is being sent to an island to rot for the rest of your life God's wrath? What is God's wrath? Okay, so if Jesus took the wrath of God's fury on sin upon his own soul, he bore that on the cross, then why would you be bearing it even if all the world was going into chaos? When you say the tribulation, God is going to save you from the tribulation, what do you mean by that? Like, what is God saving you from? I thought he already saved you by you're already saved, right? By the cross and what Jesus did on the cross, right? He's already taken your sin. He's already taken the wrath that would have been a judgment against your sin on the cross. So why wouldn't Jesus allow you to go through the tribulation then? If he's already taken your wrath, why wouldn't he let you go through it? Because really, my question to you is, what is wrath? Not what did God do about wrath, the wrath of God? That might have been your lot if you weren't right with him. But you're supposedly right with God, right? You're right with God. So there is no wrath upon you. So why would you worry about the tribulation? Why would you worry about the tribulation? Jesus took the wrath of God for us. God doesn't double dip and take two payments for sin. But are you telling me that what would be a second payment? What else? I'm asking you. He's already taken your wrath on the cross. So what is wrath then that he's going to save you from in the future. Are you talking about death? Are you talking about being boiled in hot oil? Are you talking about having your head chopped off? Are you talking about being consumed by a mushroom cloud and a flash, a twinkling of the eye, being burnt to a crisp? I mean, is that God's wrath? Is that what you mean by God's wrath? You talking about the destruction of a third of the planet, because there's the Bible talks about a third of the planet perishing all in a moment? Is that God's wrath? I'm asking you, what is God's wrath? The seal, the trumpets, and the bowl judgments. Okay. So you're saying that those seals, trumpets, and bowl judgments are what kill people, right? Is that what you're saying? Is so that God is going to save you from being killed? So does being killed equal God's judgment? Is that what you're saying? Earthquakes, nukes, volcanoes, rain, snow, hurricanes, that's God's wrath. God's wrath is the seventh trumpet judgment. Okay. And what would that be, Royale? What would the second trumpet judgment be? What happened to my screen here? Okay, well, this is just backed up a little bit, I guess. Let me just keep it on here really quick. Let me just put on a little sound here so you can hear. So this is the, I guess they're having like a memorial out there. Let me go ahead and look back at your comments there. Satan's wrath is the tribulation of Revelation 12:12. God's wrath on the on ungodly and unbelieving world. No, that's not what I'm saying. Right. God's wrath is eternal judgment, right? Or it's really eternal death. It really, when it says outer darkness and it talks about torment, but it's talking about an eon of time or a period of time, but there is the second death. The Bible talks about the lake of fire being the second death. That is the ultimate end of what those who have rebelled against God or have chosen to, their own path, and they didn't really want God's will, that's where they will go, right? And so that consuming fire that our God is, he's a consuming fire, it says, right? And the second death, obviously, death is cessation of life, but it's not a cessation of the physical, because the physical body has already died, right? So you're in hell. Once you die, you're in hell, awaiting your ultimate judgment, which is the second death, right? That is the ultimate judgment that will ultimately come. Now, you're in torment while you're in hell. There is a torment, and how long does that period last? For deeds that were done in the body, right? You're getting paid back for the deeds that were done in the body, the Bible says. So hell is not fire. A lot of people think, oh, well, hell is hellfire. They always equate hell with fire. No, hell is a place of torment in the sense of knowing that you have completely missed eternal life, that you have chosen your own way instead of God's way. You're left with that complete and utter hopelessness, emptiness, lack of any kind of hope for your soul to be saved, for having eternal life. You have missed the boat. right? And there is no turning back. That is the realization that you would have that is torment in hell, okay? And during that period, whether there's demons with you in hell or not, I don't know. But that is a place where you contemplate and you are ultimately preparing for the judgment of God himself. When he says, at a certain moment, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. Depart into outer darkness, right? Where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? Well, then that outer darkness, what is that? Is that the lake of fire? I mean, the lake of fire, it says that the devil and all of his angels and all those who disobeyed and went their own way, and then hell itself is cast into the lake of fire, right? And the lake of fire is the second death. It says that the lake of fire is the second death. So hell gets thrown in there, the devil and all of his angels, and all those who sided with the devil's plan, didn't want God's plan, wanted their own plan, they go to the lake of fire, the second death. And the Bible calls our God a consuming fire, right? Now, he only consumes wood, hay, and stubble. He only consumes sin, death, and everything that offends. The only thing that survives the fire of God is gold, silver, and precious stones, people that have been in Christ. Remember, the fourth man in the fire was like unto the Son of Man, and he did not burn up. They did not burn, right? They didn't burn. So if you're of the Lord, you will not be consumed in the fires of God's judgment. You will not. You will be in possession of eternal life. Amen. Eternal death is God's wrath, yes. So for those who would say, I got to escape the bad times that are coming, I don't want to see a nuclear bomb go off, I don't want to have to be without food and, on the lam running like Mad Max and not, and potentially be hunted down, and maybe they want to kill us and drop our heads off, and who knows what they want to do. Maybe they want to inject us forcefully with nanotech and try to commandeer our families. Who knows what's going to happen? The way things are going, it's very possible, especially with all the overstepping of civil laws and especially if our world goes into chaos and war. Anything can happen at that point. Emergency decrees to take away freedoms like we've never seen before in our history. Anything can happen at that point. I mean, they're already rounding up homeless people. Did you know they're putting homeless people in camps right now? Huge camps that the government has made. What are they going to do with all those homeless people? They're just rounding them up off the streets, taking them to camps. Wow. Wonder what's going to happen there. Let's see what else is going on here. I'm just trying to see how many people are really out here. The one in the middle looks interesting. It's really cold in Minneapolis right now. From what I understand, it's like in this 20-degree range. So I don't think that they're going to be able to protest too long out there in Minnesota because it's way too cold. So listen to this. Turkish Airlines, Fly Dubai, Azerbaijan Airlines, Lufthansa, and Austrian Airlines have all suspended their flights to Iran. Ooh, that's crazy. That means things are going to get hot and heavy here pretty soon. We're about to see some pretty big stuff go down, guys. Yeah, some big stuff's going to go down. We're going to see some big stuff happen here. Okay. Yeah, so just kind of keep it away here. Let's listen and see what they're saying here.
This is pretty. The snow. Everybody?
This is Minnesota.
We're good? Everybody good?
Yeah, thanks for checking.
Well, good morning, everyone. We wanted to come out here and provide a situational update and make sure everybody understand both what happened in the last couple nights and also where we're going here moving forward. I wanted to acknowledge how inspired I am by so many community members that have stepped up. They've been providing food to people that have immigrated to Minneapolis. They've made sure that those that are terrified right now of the actions by ICE have support, have love, have care, are able to get to the grocery store, even childcare. The way that they have stepped up is amazing. I also want to acknowledge that the vast majority of people have protested peacefully. Recognizing that I have seen community members sort of step into the breach. I have seen that there's outsiders that are trying to rile up large crowds, and not only have they not taken the bait, they have pushed others back from the brink to say, hey, you know what? This is what Donald Trump wants. He wants us to take the bait. He wants those agitators to get a hold of this crowd in a way that it makes them cause harm to others and or damage to property. And so to them, I want to say my deepest thanks. We are so grateful for everything that you've been doing. And to our first responders, to our police officers, Chief O'Hara, to our firefighters, Chief Rucker, they have been working tirelessly. They have canceled all days off. They've made sure that they are out here protecting people, keeping them safe, and showing a true juxtaposition between the kind of public safety and service that we provide to our residents here at the city of Minneapolis versus what ICE is doing. And so, again, I am inspired by so many community members that have kept the peace and that are making very clear the message: we cannot take the bait. And to the few that have caused damage to property and or harm to others need to be very clear we're not going to let that happen. If you cause damage to property or put others in dangers, you're going to be arrested. And again, the vast majority of people have done this right. We are so deeply appreciative of them. But we have seen a few incidents last night. Those incidents are being reviewed. There were approximately 29 arrests that were made that Chief O'Hara will provide an update on. But we wanted to, again, give sort of the overarching theme of what we're seeing, which is peaceful protest. And we wanted to say when that doesn't happen, of course, there are consequences. We are a safe city. We will not counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos here. We in Minneapolis are going to do this right. Chief O'Hara is going to now provide an update. Thank you, Chief, for all your work.
Good morning. My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIAN_OHARA. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. The Minneapolis Police Department has been monitoring a number of marches and protests and other First Amendment activities over the course of the week. All of those protests and marches have remained peaceful until last night. Last night at about 7 p.m., there was a gathering outside the Canopy Hotel in downtown Minneapolis. That gathering began as all the other gatherings around hotels had been conducted over the last several days. Largely peaceful, mainly a noise protest that was occurring, trying to disrupt the activities at the hotel. Unfortunately, that changed last night. Individuals at the Canopy then began marching on Washington Avenue towards the Depot and the Renaissance Hotel. While they were there, some individuals broke off from that group, and in the rear, they caused some damage to that hotel, damage to some of the windows and some graffiti damage. They then returned to the Canopy Hotel, where the Minneapolis Police Department responded with well over 200 police officers, Minnesota State Troopers, and Minnesota DNR police officers. We initiated a plan and took our time to de-escalate the situation, issued multiple warnings declaring an unlawful assembly, and ultimately then began to move in and disperse the crowd. It was well over 1,000 individuals, we believe, that were assembled there. And as those individuals broke off from the crowd, we had some other marches that then continued downtown. Ultimately, by 1 a.m., all of these individuals were either dispersed or placed under arrest. There were 29 arrests last night. We are aware of one police officer that was injured from a chunk of ice that was thrown at them. Other than that, we are not aware of any other injuries. I just want to say I'm incredibly proud of the police officers in this town and the state law enforcement officers and all the other police that have been here with us through this. What you saw last night was a disciplined and restrained response. I think it was highly professional, and I'm thankful for the members of the community who understand our need to keep things peaceful. And I'm thankful for those officials and others that are continuing to call for peaceful protest and assembly. Obviously, there's a number of additional marches and protests that we will be monitoring today, and we are fully prepared if things cross the line and become unlawful to make additional arrests if necessary. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll open it to questions.
Yeah, I have a question for Chief.
I'll go here and then here.
Give us an idea, what are you seeing in terms of immigration reform in the city? Is it mostly ICE? Is it CBP? Where is it happening? What times of the day?
I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hara for a little bit more of an update. But the question is, what kind of immigration enforcement are we seeing in the city? I'll start by mentioning the immigration enforcement that is taking place is not limited to Minneapolis. It's in our entire region, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, Brooklyn Center. We're seeing it in a number of different areas throughout Minnesota. And as far as I can tell, it's happening all times of the day. I'll let Chief O'Hara give a little bit more of an update. A lot of it is scattered. A lot of it is unplanned. This is part of the issue, is that this is not a coordinated strategic plan that we're seeing being carried out. In many cases, it's indiscriminate. I've said this before, but I think that the initial impetus to come to Minnesota was go to Minnesota, arrest and deport a bunch of Somali people. And then they get here and they realize that the Somali people that would be arrested or deported are all legal. They're American citizens. You can't do that. And so there's not like some meatpacking plant or factory where you can go and get a bunch of Somalis. And then they turned their ire towards our Latino community and other immigrant communities that are here. Regardless, these are communities that make Minneapolis a better place. And so to have this kind of scattered buckshot approach that we're seeing that is not strategic in any way, not only endangers these community members that have been here for the long haul, it endangers these neighborhoods that they're rolling through. Minneapolis is on a great comeback, and they're just making it more difficult for that comeback to fully take shape. And so I'll turn it over to Chief O'Hara.
I'm sorry, what was the initial question?
So the question was, can you tell us what some of these immigration enforcement actions
the actions.
Like?
So the actions are widespread across all parts of the city, mainly focused on the south side and in some cases northeast part of Minneapolis. There are oftentimes what appear to be arrests made from vehicles, and we have had reports that come in of vehicles that are abandoned that we then have to respond to tow the vehicles. At least in one case, we had a report of a person taken from a vehicle that the vehicle was not even placed in park, and the car rolled, blocking the roadway, and we had to respond and tow it. Another instance, I remember there was a vehicle that was left in the roadway with a dog inside that we had to respond with animal control and take custody of the dog. So it's a number of actions that are occurring on the city streets, and they are happening all over the city.
Did you tell them about the one on 3rd Avenue? Just to give you another example of how reckless some of these actions are, maybe 12 blocks from here, 10 blocks from here, over on 3rd Avenue, there was an ICE action that took place. An individual from a car that was in the middle of a pretty significant street was detained. They left the car in the middle of the street. The car wasn't even in park, and so you've got this vehicle that is just rolling down the street with nobody in it. And it wasn't a Waymo. This was a car that was rolling down the street that could have hit anybody, including my own family members that live not too far from there. And so this is not about safety, clearly. If this was about safety, you wouldn't do stupid things like that. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody has gotten killed. And so that's not the route as to how you do any of these exercises productively or safely. And so that's what we're seeing. Yes?
Looking ahead tonight for night 5.
ICE isn't leaving. DHS is sending more officers. How concerned are you about temper spraying, people getting tired, exhausted, and things turning bad?
Yeah. I mean, concern, of course, is the name of the game. We are constantly monitoring what is taking place, not just the actions on the street, but also the energy of our police officers, our firefighters, our first responders that in many cases haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep. They're working really hard right now. So, I just think it's common sense that, anybody, if you're tired or you're hungry or you're sick, or you're forced to make a split-second decision when you're tired or you're hungry or you're sick, you're more likely to make a mistake. We don't want mistakes being made. And so I'm so appreciative of their work. I'm really grateful for it. And again, I want to reiterate this. I am really grateful for so many community members. I saw this video, I think it was yesterday, where you had this agitator, clearly from the far right, that was coming in and trying to rile up the crowd. He was trying to make the crowd do something that they shouldn't be doing. He was trying to make the crowd take the bait so that they would give the authorization or at least an excuse for the Trump administration to come in even more. It was so awesome that not only was the crowd not taking the bait, they were basically blowing them off. They were grinning down the bear. And I think that is emblematic of what's happening in Minneapolis right now. We are grinning down the bear. We are meeting a whole lot of despair with a lot of hope. We are doing right. We are being strategic. And yes, For those that aren't being strategic, for those that are taking the bait and causing property damage or otherwise, there are consequences. We're holding the line here all the way.
Related to the shooting, I understand the officer, the ICE officer, was treated at a hospital. Can you elaborate a bit on the nature of that, any injuries, where he was treated, when he was treated, how long he was in medical care?
I think you're referencing the ICE agent, and I don't have any information on that. Do you? No, we don't know.
There are some people online who are frustrated that they thought Minneapolis Police Department left the scene of the protest last night. Of course, you guys came back and state police came as well. Can you describe to us the strategy behind when you're not present at those protests and when you decide to come in?
So this is a fine line that we have to walk. Because unfortunately, there's a whole lot of people that once we inject ourselves into a situation, then want to turn their frustration and their anger on us. So what we do is we act very strategically with restraint. We take our time to ensure that we have sound tactics, a good plan, and move in so that we can keep the safety of law enforcement as well as the safety of community in mind. What happened last night at one point was we still have everything else that happens in American cities happening. Our police officers had to respond to a 911 call that a woman who had an altered mental status had driven her car up onto a sidewalk and was blocking a parking access. So the police responded there and were dealing with that issue when they were unexpectedly and quite quickly surrounded by protesters at that march. And as we have seen, it is our police officers that then become the object of people's frustration. So because there was a safety element there, we quickly responded in and got those officers out, and then immediately formed up well over 200 police officers with a sound plan, began videotaping the actions that were happening and making the announcements and taking our time and allowing people who were not involved in illegal activity to legally disperse. But once it became clear, I think it was around 10:15 that we declared that. Once it became clear that there were individuals that were not going to abide by our direction to leave, they were placed under arrest.
I know you mentioned you've had to cancel that PTO after the weekend. Can you speak to the level of police resources that are going to respond related to isolation?
So the question was that we have canceled all days off and recalled personnel to duty. So the level or percent of people who are responding to events around this, I would say is close to 100%. So we have officers, obviously, that are conducting their normal duties and responding to 911 calls, but then they're also being held over, and they're being held on standby, if not being assigned to post up in locations. Last night, as obviously we were dealing with over 200 officers at the scene to execute the unlawful assembly and dispersal order. We were also posting other police officers around downtown to ensure that we did not have additional destruction. So it is quite literally almost 100% of every sworn member of the department.
Maybe two more. 911 calls specifically about immigration enforcement, people saying I saw ICE officers do X or Y.
The question was getting 911 calls specifically about immigration enforcement, and yes, there's just dozens and dozens every single day, ranging from anything from people seeing arrests happening, or they seeing surveillance, or they seeing individuals that they're not sure that are ICE, to the things that I mentioned, that there's cars that are now left abandoned because someone was detained.
We'll do one more.
She's been had her hand up.
Yeah.
Both Sarah and Patricia with the Christian Science Monitor. What is the status of both of your offices' communication with DHS?
So the question was the status of communication with DHS. We have ongoing communication with all of federal law enforcement in Minnesota, and that's because we do have work that goes on and continues to go on, addressing gang violence, drug dealing, and serious street crime. So there is ongoing communication with our officers and federal agents literally every single day. It's just that there is not, there's a line, there's a separation between communication around those issues and communication around immigration enforcement. There is none.
Thanks, everybody.
Jacob Fry and other Minneapolis officials speaking there as we continue to look out for any and all protest activity. I'll ask our producers here, FNN 31, do we have a location on that by chance? So, Texas, Dallas, yeah. So Dallas, as we've been seeing, Dallas is protesting in real time as the sun is going down there in the Lone Star State. Let's pull the audio up on this for a moment. Let's listen. So obviously this protest taking place right next to Dallas in Fort Worth. We've been tracking protests across the country as people react to the killing of Renee Good. We had a live vantage point of a protest in Minneapolis earlier. We no longer have that live vantage point. We also had one in Chicago for a moment there, but this is Dallas you're looking at now. A quick thing I want to put up before we hit our first break of the hour. Bill Malugin has this, a statement from ICE Director Todd Lyons, quote, regardless of staged political theatrics, ICE is going to continue to arrest the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens in Minnesota and elsewhere. Some of these criminal aliens have had final orders of removal for 30 years. But they've been free to terrorize Minnesotans. ICE's arrests prevent recidivism and make communities safer, but it feels like local politicians want to ignore that part and drum up discontent rather than protect their own constituents. Malugin with that post. A live look at the White House, 6:05 in the nation's capital. We're going to be checking in with retired Marine intelligence officer and national security analyst Hal Kempfer in a moment here. We're going to be talking Venezuela, Iran, a boost in defense spending. President Trump wants to spend $1.5 trillion. That's a 50% increase for the 2027 military budget. Discussing all that and more, and also keeping an eye on protests nationwide when our coverage returns.
All right, guys. I'm just having a little bite to eat here, but it looks like things are definitely still, lots of protests, and I have a feeling that it's going to increase.
Her name! Say 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 her name!
Okay. That's actually Minnesota, but, they're talking about this spreading. A lot of these feeds aren't working here. So potential unrest in America is here, and I think that everybody, like I said earlier, should be keeping an eye out in their local areas. I'm sure there's going to be protests in a lot of cities now that this is beginning to ramp up. And you're going to see all these other groups trying to, piggyback and capitalize off of the discontent. Groups like Black Lives Matter, Antifa groups, communist groups out there that are always looking to piggyback on top of something like this. LGBTQ, there's a lot of discontent amongst this community as well that will, activate their protest units. I guess they do. They all have organizations, and when they see a cause, they all usually kind of unite on. These types of things are things that they do just to kind of cause a destabilization and a backlash on. And this was what the whole thing was about. And to me, it's orchestrated chaos. I do think that there is some desire from the higher-ups to have and give an excuse for martial law. I do believe that that's something that they're doing. They're trying to actively encourage this chaos in some way to facilitate the clamping down and the imposition of different federal troops and controls. And this is what the whole activation process of Trump signing into order starting January 1st of 2026 was to clamp down on, criminal events that would be happening in America or terrorist events. So they were expecting this. Trump administration was in anticipation of all these things happening anyway. So, and be careful about being in any kind of protest. Don't go to protests because protests are being targeted, and they're treating protest as domestic terrorism now. And so, if you're caught up in one of these protests, if you don't understand what's really going on there, they've actually deemed these types of protests, and they can very easily fall into the category of domestic terror. You're getting these ICE agents that have been activated to deal with these protests on a level that is crossing over into how you would handle a terrorist event. So your constitutional rights are actually diminished, if not taken away, at a certain point. And depending on how they're looking at it, and who you're dealing with, if it's local or state. But the thing is too, is they're federalizing state and local law enforcement in some states, like the red states. The red states are going along with it. They had 22, from what I remember, there was 22 red states that went along with some of the directives. Now the blue states aren't going along with it, obviously, but when you got that federalization taking place, your weapon, you're basically it's kind of like when back in the 80s and 90s. Remember when they had that big thing about Africanized bees? They were Africanized bees. The honeybees got mixed up with the African bees, and then they turned very violent, right? And they were stinging everybody and killing people, and people were so afraid that these Africanized bees were going to kill everybody. Well, that's kind of what people are thinking about federalizing local and state law enforcement, is that you're basically kind of pouring gasoline on a mindset and a kind of a doctrine of engagement, a rule of engagement that kind of turns up the heat. It actually intensifies the ability for these law enforcement to handle certain situations, and they go over the top. They're going to be protected. It doesn't matter because they know that they're under different kind of rules or orders. So they're not going to be as, obviously we went very far to the left, and now we're going to go swing very far to the right. Just so you know, it's going to swing very hard to the right, and it's going to be a lot harder than people realize. You're talking about what I would say would be overstepping your constitutional freedoms. Now, if you're on the right, you're going to be like, yay, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Well, yeah, because they did this on purpose. They wanted to swing the pendulum very hard to the left so that you would cheer on your ultimate, demise, which you wouldn't even realize until it was too late, And so I don't know if you've ever heard that saying. They came for the communists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist. They came for the the socialists but I didn't say anything because I was a socialist. They came for the capitalists, but I didn't say anything because I wasn't a capitalist. Then they came for me, but there was nobody else to help me because everybody had already been taken, right? They just, and it's a part of the process of whittling down. This is what they're doing right now with a lot of the allies of like Russia and China. Is they're taking one out at a time. And see, this is why we're in a precarious moment, I think, geopolitically, is because these countries like China and Russia could potentially realize that, and their intelligence may tell them, hey, you need to preemptively act, because what they're doing is they're weakening our alliances. And if we get too weak, then they can easily overcome what we're all about. They could destabilize us or decapitate operations, or they're AI now. They got AI weapons now that are very good at ferreting people out and using this technology to take people down. And so they might be on a hair's trigger, realizing that it's a lot closer than they really realize, that their insulation against the West is not there at this point, or they're fearing that it could literally be taken away. They might preemptively strike. So there's a very real possibility that we could see preemptive types of events, that whether it's through proxies or whether it's a direct kinetic conflict, take place. The reality is we are living on a hair's trigger right now of something happening that gets out of control. A lot of people are trusting that Trump knows what he's doing, and that he's obviously executing, good tactics of trying to, overwhelm your adversary with, 1,000 cuts and possibly even, shock and awe at certain strategic moments, kind of like jiu-jitsu. But, it only takes one big punch that connects to lay you out on your backside, As they say, everybody has a plan until they're hit in the jaw. Once you get hit in the jaw, reality, cuckoo, everybody falls on their butt, and they realize, wow, that's what war is all about. That's what real war is. When we get hit in the jaw and we see something terrible, that's war. That's a reality wake-up call. America is not living in reality. When you think about like what happened during World War II, the mindset of the average American was, we could literally be taken over and or destroyed by our enemies. And there was a fever pitch work ethic that kicked in, kind of a survival instinct. Everybody started pitching in. Everything was being rationed. I mean, it was everything for the war effort. Everybody was involved, even little kids. Everybody was involved, preparing for nuclear holocaust at the same time, especially as we went into the Cold War. But that mindset is totally, completely at lost to this generation. They don't even know. This is more of the mindset, this protest mindset. This generation is all caught up with protests and thinking that, they're going to be socially active online like keyboard warriors. Are going to somehow, be effective in turning back the tide. But really, what do they even know, really? Because your parents, your grandparents, what did they really pass on to the generations that have followed? Not a whole lot. We've lost touch with our history, and that's the bad thing, is that you've lost touch with history. And it's not just, secular interpretations of what history is. It's really about your spiritual history of who you really are and what made societies great, what really affected, long-term cultural ennoblement of the human experience. It goes all the way back to God. Like, I mean, think about it. Higher institutions of higher learning, a lot of them started as Christian organizations, Christian institutions, and they morphed into what they are today, like Harvard or whatever. And your hospitals, where did all your hospitals come from? Mostly plants from churches. The benevolent, food drive type Salvation Armies, things like that, Red Cross. Where did they all spring from? They sprang from Christian, charities, Christian missions, Christian teachings that were based on Scripture. We've totally and completely lost touch with our roots. And that's why America is on the brink of seeing this technology destroy us. God is allowing it. God is going to allow it. Lynn Farley, that's absolutely right. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And God will allow this strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Or exactly. They're going to believe the lie. It's really a sin problem. Absolutely, Carl. It's a sin problem. It's not a political problem. It's not a geopolitical problem or a military problem or a social problem. It's a sin problem. Whoops. What did I just do? Something's going on here. What probably will be used on processors and everyone else? Direct energy weapons. Yeah. They're talking about direct energy weapons. Okay, so what's going on here? So this was just posted. Let's see, this was this morning. This account from a Venezuela security guard loyal to Nicolas Maduro is absolutely chilling, and it explains a lot about why the tone across Latin America suddenly changed. The security guard said, on the day of the operation, listen to this. You guys got to listen to this. This is coming from Kara Lovett. She's the White House press secretary. She reposted this statement here. So look at this. It says this account, and by the way, Lovett said, this is her right here. Look what she said. Stop what you're doing and read this. Oh, let me turn this down here. So it says, the security guard said, on the day of the operation, we didn't hear anything coming. We were on guard, but suddenly all of our radar systems shut down without any explanation. The next thing we saw were drones, a lot of drones, flying over our positions. We didn't know how to react. The interviewer, what happened next? How was the main attack? After those drones appeared, some helicopters arrived, but there were very few. I think barely 8 helicopters. From those helicopters, soldiers came down, but a very small number, maybe 20 men. But those men were technologically very advanced. They didn't look like anything we fought against before. And then the battle began, said the interviewer. The security guard said, yes, but it was a massacre. We were hundreds, but we had no chance. They were shooting with such precision and speed, it seemed like each soldier was firing 300 rounds per minute. We couldn't do anything. These are super soldiers. These are AI technological weapons. AI weapons, I bet. The interviewer, and your own weapons, didn't they help? The security guard says, no help at all, because it wasn't just the weapons. At one point, they launched something. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a very intense sound wave. Suddenly, I felt like my head was exploding from the inside. We all started bleeding from the nose. Some were vomiting blood. We fell to the ground, unable to move. The interviewer, and your comrades, did they manage to resist? The security guard said, no, not at all. Those 20 men, without a single casualty, killed hundreds of us. We had no way to compete with their technology, with their weapons. I swear I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't even stand up after that sonic weapon or whatever it was. Interviewer, so do you think that the rest of the region should think twice before confronting Americans? And this could all be propaganda too, but I mean, I'm not saying that they don't have these types of weapons, but how do we even know that this is legit? Really? I mean, AI could have wrote this for all we know. The security guard says, without a doubt, yeah, you don't want to resist America. Without a doubt, I am sending a warning to anyone who thinks that they can fight the United States. They have no idea what they're capable of. After what I saw, I never want to be on the side of that again, the other side of that again. They're not to be messed with. Interviewer, and now that Trump has said Mexico is on the list, do you think the situation will change in Latin America? Security guard, definitely. Everyone is already talking about this. No one wants to go through what we went through. Now everyone thinks twice. What happened here is going to change a lot of things, not just in Venezuela, but throughout the region. What do you think? It's got 16.5 million views. The Bible says, who can make war against the beast? It's implying that no one can make war against the beast. And as I've tried to tell you guys for the last 4 or 5 years, this is exactly what we see unfolding right now. It's the beast infrastructure and system and war machine. And 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 has and is currently underway. We're seeing the falling away. We're seeing the falling away, and we're seeing the revealing. The Bible calls it the apocalypse. The apocalypse just means the unveiling. The unveiling before the day of the Lord. It has to take place first before the day of the Lord, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. There's going to be a great apostasy. The apostasy just means the falling away of those who at one point were faithful or maybe they were just in name only. Maybe they just had a very surface relationship with Christ, but they're going to fall away. First comes the falling away, and then comes the unveil. Well, first comes the revealing, and then the unveiling. Or I'm sorry, the falling away. I think I had it in the right way. So, yeah. So that's kind of interesting, don't you think? What do you think? Let's see. Okay, breaking news. We got some breaking news here. An Iranian commander of a missile unit in the Kashani County, Isfahan province of central Iran, has been assassinated in a drone strike. An Iranian commander of a missile unit in the Kashani County, Isfahan province, and that's the place where they've got all their nuclear facilities too, was or has been assassinated in a drone strike. Wow. That's interesting, huh? Okay, so Gateway Pundit is now posting something about this sonic weapon. Isn't that interesting that we're talking about the sonic weapon? So listen to this. The White House suggests that the U.S. military used powerful sonic weapon to take out Venezuelan soldiers during Maduro capture. Witness says he's never seen anything like it. Okay, so they're just posting what we already just posted. Now, like I said, I have no idea if that's propaganda, if it's legit. I mean, anything can be made up like that. I mean, that sounds like a good story that you might see in a Terminator program or something, a Terminator movie. So, yeah. Pretty crazy stuff. What do you guys think about that? I'm looking at your guys' chat here. What's your thoughts on all that, guys? Let's listen to this.
Is behind them 110%. They know that the president will order missions to Iran because they just saw it happen in June. But on the other hand, what you hit and how you hit it would be a very difficult one. I have no doubt that there are those in U.S. Central Command and elsewhere that are looking at this right now saying, what could we possibly do? And then, of course, what are the results? What is the outcome? Would we achieve the desired end state? Could it be something where we actually hit them and then set back the protest movement? So there's a lot of ifs and a lot of things they got to work through on that.
During the 12-day war, the U.S. Struck that Fordo site with its B-2s. Does the reaction, let's rewind to this past summer for a moment here, because when people hear about Iran and the U.S., friction building between the two countries, it does spook people. And it does make people's mind wander to, well, what if things escalate between the two countries? Remind us, the last time the U.S. struck Iran this past summer, how did Tehran respond to that?
Well, what Tehran did was they launched all of those missiles and drones towards Israel. And then, of course, they responded by hitting Qatar, hitting the airbase at Qatar, which, as you may recall, last June, I was in that part of the world. I actually went through the airport in Qatar en route to where I was going. And so that kind of struck close to home, so to speak. I wasn't there when the missiles actually struck, but they actually struck a U.S. base in there, and we have a number of bases over there, and those bases are, they're vulnerable to strikes. So that is something that we have to take into consideration, and certainly the Iranians have shown a willingness to do that. Although all the information at the time, it almost sounded as if it had been kind of orchestrated that Iran would respond and they would strike these things so that they could say they responded, and then it wouldn't escalate beyond that. And it was rather an interesting period where Iran responded to our strikes in such a way. But I don't know what would happen in this case. And, frankly, one of the things that's really different about the protests, which kind of goes to the calculus, there are protesters, and it's been reported widely, who are saying death to Khomeini, death to the supreme leader of Iran. That's something we haven't really heard much in previous protests. I think that's what changes it. And, President Trump has alluded to the fact, during that 12-day war period, he said, we could have struck Khomeini, but we decided not to. I think Khomeini certainly hears that. And there are reports that are out there, not from the most substantial, what I would consider, the core news organizations, but there are reports that maybe Khomeini has been looking at possibly finding a way, to depart Iran, to leave or to do something. And I don't rule that out. I haven't seen that get picked up by the mainstream media outlets that I expect to carry a story like that. But sometimes you see those things out there, and then the next day, boom, they are in the mainstream. So we'll see what happens.
So that idea would be similar to what we saw with Assad.
Very similar. In fact, almost identical.
Now, we reported that yesterday. So for those who don't remember or weren't there when we were talking about this, we were reporting that he might be going to a new place.
Ruining their own streets in order to make the president of another country happy.
And that's really been one of his main points, is that this is, and some of what's been happening with these protesters is they're doing this in an effort to appease President Trump. Khomeini has framed protesters as, again, pleasing the White House. State media has used language like terrorists to describe some of these protesters. Is there any way, Hal, to know how much weight that type of rhetoric actually carries domestically within the Iranian public?
Well, I can say this. So with the protesters, I think that rhetoric carries zero weight. They're protesting for reasons that have nothing to do with President Trump. And I don't think any of the Iranian protesters are out there saying, hey, let's go out there and we're going to make President Trump happy if we're doing this. That is not their motivation. Their motivation is very fundamental. It's very domestic. It's very close to home. They don't like this, just this theocratic autocracy that has crushed their spirit so many times. They don't like this police state that this autocracy depends upon. But there's also the bigger issue, which is if you can't get the economy to function, if people can't make money so they can put food on the table at night, at that point, the government has completely failed. And then in the background, as you may recall, Tehran, that big capital city, is literally running out of water. Their water management has been so bad over the many, many years, over the decades, along with drought and some climate change issues, that they're literally looking at having to move the capital of Iran to another city because Tehran can't support the water needs of the capital of Iran. All of these things are crushing blows to the current regime. That's what's got the protesters out there. That's what they're angry about. And of course, Khomeini is desperate to try and divert attention. And frankly, to say that they're out there to try and appease President Trump, if you're familiar with the culture and everything else, it's almost laughable. But he's really trying to do that to come up with some sort of explanation as to why does my entire population, why are they all out there on the streets? And of course, he's probably a little bit miffed that many of them are calling for his death. So that's what he's trying to do to try to divert. But we shouldn't pay too much attention to that.
We've been talking about the internet connectivity thing.
All right, guys, I'll be right back. Just stay tuned. Give me about 2 minutes.
Cut off international calls. There are reports that the outage was attributed to the government interfering with these mediums. Hal, is there a reliable way to determine casualties and arrests? Is there a reliable way to track any of this stuff when the state is imposing communication blackouts?
What's interesting is, and of course, this is one of the things that the Iranian regime is very upset about, is Israeli intelligence has completely permeated their society. They've got quite an intelligence network in place, and we saw that in June, what they were able to pull off. And therefore, the intelligence, if you will, ground truth of what's going on, it will get back. That does not rely on the internet or regular telephone service or anything like that. That information will get back. Now, how that gets disseminated out into the open source world, okay, if it comes through intelligence sources, that happens all the time. Various countries gather information and they put stuff. There's relationships with journalists and things where they will let them know things. And certainly Israel has a reason to get the information out there about how badly the regime is doing. So I think we will find out. I've heard at least 65, maybe more people have been killed. Hundreds, and it could be thousands, have been arrested, put in jail, prison. And it sounds like there's going to be a lot more going on and a lot more people hurt than killed. So these protests are huge. And everything is indicating that the government's only response is they're going to crack down brutally as they have in the past. And I'm expecting to see that. And unfortunately, I'm also expecting to see the casualties increase as well.
Live look at the White House. It's just past 6:30 in the nation's capital. The big question on everybody's mind, Hal. President Trump has publicly pledged to support protesters. He's threatened consequences if protesters are killed. His most recent post says, the USA stands ready to help. The big question is, what's the likelihood that the U.S. does get involved? What's your gut tell you?
My gut tells me if the president was to do something, first off, we can always impose more sanctions. That's something we do. We can work with our allies to do a variety of things. We can seize ships with Iranian oil. We can do a number of different things. But if we do something kinetic in Iran, it will have to be very targeted, very specific, and I would imagine that we would go after the Revolutionary Guard Corps with very specific targets where you're not going to see a lot of civilian collateral damage, and maybe key leadership sites, maybe Khomeini's home or home of other top leadership might be targeted. Although that area of Tehran where they live is supposedly there's a very extensive underground bomb shelter system that they have in there that they were hiding in during the June bombings, and that may be something where it would probably take a B-2 bomber to put ordnance down there to penetrate deep enough to cause problems. But then you have to have really exact intelligence to say where are they in that underground complex in order to have the effects on target.
We have one more topic to hit with Hal. We're going to be discussing Venezuela, specifically the seizure of more tankers as of late. Lots to discuss. One more commercial break. Hal and I returning in a moment. All right, you're watching live now. I'm Austin Westfall, a live look at the White House. We continue to track the latest developments in Venezuela and the White House's back and forths, if you will.
All right, so sorry about that, guys. Okay, so still ongoing, continuing on. Let's see where this is going to go here, but they got some commentary here that I think is interesting. Let's listen to see what they had to say here. Hold on. Let's see.
Did we actually get during that meeting? It sounded like we didn't get a whole lot of specifics, but it sounded like one primary topic was safety in Venezuela. Trump wants to convince oil executives that Venezuela is safe. From what you've seen, was his pitch effective?
Well, it was interesting, his remarks. He came out afterwards. He says, well, we kind of have a deal. But based on what I heard, as you know, Chevron is actually in Venezuela. They are the only U.S. company that is pumping oil, that's shipping oil out. They're of the three that were there before. ConocoPhillips used to be down there. Exxon Mobil used to be down there. They lost. When I think it was ConocoPhillips says, or maybe it was Exxon. I think actually both of them did say that three times or twice they've had their oil holdings seized, and they've essentially been kicked out of Venezuela. And Exxon was very clear. He said this would be the third time we've gone back in there, and he just looked at the situation on the ground. He says it's just not secure enough for investing. We're talking about at least $100 billion, somewhere between $70 to $100 billion worth of U.S. oil company investments to basically rebuild this dilapidated oil infrastructure, this capability that Venezuela once had. And they're looking at the situation politically on the ground, and it's not there. We can say we control the country, but the reality is on the ground, we do not control the country. And the head of Exxon at that meeting called it uninvestable, which I thought was an interesting term. But he's basically saying, look, from an investment standpoint, it's just not safe enough to invest that type of money. It's not safe for us to go back in there. And frankly, with the current regime, even though Maduro's gone, the chances of them losing their entire investment or a big chunk of their investment, or the country going into a civil war where they can't do anything, and a number of other scenarios I could throw out there, is pretty darn big. And so they're looking, when you're looking at putting 10 or 20 or $50 billion someplace, or $100 billion, you're looking for someplace where you're going to get a return on investment. And they're just not sure that they're at that place yet.
You and I have talked countless amounts of times about Venezuela, and still one of my biggest questions looms. I'm curious your take on it tonight. As things stand tonight, and for those watching this clip on YouTube later, we're speaking on Saturday night, U.S. time. Do we have any clarity on who or what will control Venezuela in the long term moving forward?
Right now, Delcy Rodriguez is, we've kind of recognized her as the president. She was Maduro's vice president. She stepped in. Their Supreme Court.
Okay, really quick. They said that there was a high-level mole in the Venezuelan government. They said it's either Dulce or it's the other guy that they're saying they want to get. I forget his name. If he's the defense minister or something, I forgot his name. It's one of the two, right? They're saying it's one of the two, high level, very high level, supposedly. And I thought it might have been Dulce too. That was my thought at first, and that she was trying to play it off by pretending to not like Trump, and right after it happened to tell Trump he can't come in. She probably made those statements with the approval of Trump to make it look like she was independent and that the population would go along with her, being that she wasn't, a proxy leader, or that she in some way ratted out Maduro. She definitely didn't want to look like she was a part of it, right? But what about this here? I'm looking at something right now. Have you ever heard of an Operation Sandman? They're saying that it's at a certain point when there's all these countries that are going to agree to dump the dollar all at once. They're saying that that is possibly what has been initiated. This person says, I am a former Wall Street broker and I've been coming here. Okay, so they said, I've always said our Achilles heel is our debt. Raise our credit limit 2 to 3 a year max. It rolls over in principle because we can't pay it down. Petrodollar as of today officially done. Reserve currency status is gone. I moved to a rural, poor, self-sufficient area in preparation for real important. Listen, it's about 25 minutes in. Yeah, so there are. This is really one of the reasons why we moved out in the middle of nowhere too. It's because, and I don't know if there's really any real safe place to be. I know there's better places to be than at others. I mean, maybe you'll survive a little longer if you're not in a very congested location, but the death blow of the U.S. dollar. Let's just listen in.
If you believe the narrative...
Let me just see what this guy had to say here. 25 minutes in, huh? Hold on one second here.
Conductive metal. Won't be a raid, might go down.
Okay, listen to this. All right, here we go.
Think they are securing the physical world, and the most critical, most undervalued, most scarce physical asset in their entire portfolio is the one you can still buy today for $80. They are transitioning from stage 4, grabbing foreign resources, to stage 5. Stage 5 is the internal panic. It is the moment when the public realizes that the government is cannibalizing the economy to feed the war machine. It is the moment when the illusion of fiat wealth shatters and the stampede into hard assets begins. We are standing on the precipice of the greatest psychological shift in human history. The shift from trusting the full faith and credit of the government to trusting the atomic weight of gold and silver. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave the average citizen who is watching their country disintegrate in real time? It leaves you with a very small window of opportunity, a window that is closing faster than anyone realizes. We need to wrap this up with the conclusion. We need to give you the final roadmap for the next few weeks, because stage 5 is not coming next year. It is coming now. Let's tell you exactly what you need to do before the price goes to infinity. Let's finish this briefing. So, this brings us to the final, brutal reality of the situation. We have connected the dots from the raid in Caracas to the debt clock in Washington, from the millionaire flight in London to the empty vaults in New York. The picture is not complicated. It is terrifyingly simple. We are watching the death of a currency in real time. We are watching the transition from stage 4, where the government steals assets to survive, to stage 5, where the public loses all confidence in the paper promises. And you have to understand that this transition does not happen gradually. It happens all at once. It is like a dam breaking. One moment the water is held back and everything looks calm. The next moment the wall cracks and the valley is underwater. We are standing at the base of that dam, and the Venezuela raid was the sound of the concrete cracking. The government has shown its hand. They have admitted, through their actions, that the dollar is no longer a store of value. It is a weapon of conquest. And once the general public, the teachers, the truck drivers, the small business owners, realize that their money is backed by nothing but F-35 fighter jets and stolen oil, the psychology of the market will snap. They will not wait for permission. They will run. They will run from the banks. They will run from the bond market. They will run from the stock market. And they will run toward the only things that cannot be printed, hacked, or debased. They will run to food. They will run to land. And they will run to silver. But here's the tragedy. When the herd finally arrives, when the millions of people who are currently asleep finally wake up, it will be too late. The inventory will be gone. The 142,000 millionaires will have already bought it all. The Department of Defense will have already nationalized the mines. The price on the screen might say $200 or $500, but there will be no buy button. There will be sold-out signs on every bullion dealer website in the world. This is why I'm telling you that $80 is a gift. It is not a price, it is an invitation. It is the pre-collapse discount that the market is offering you before the reality sets in. Thinking that silver is expensive at $80 is like thinking a lifeboat is expensive on the Titanic just after it hit the iceberg. The price is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is, do you have a seat? We are at the end of a 2,000-year cycle. History is screaming at us. The Romans who held the debased copper denarius lost everything. They starved in the streets of the eternal city. The Romans who held the physical silver and gold survived. They kept their wealth. They became the architects of the next civilization. You have a choice to make today. You can stay in the burning building, holding your paper dollars, hoping that the politicians will fix the $38 trillion debt that they created. You can hope that the war in Venezuela doesn't spread. You can hope that the millionaires are wrong. Or you can look at the facts. You can look at the helicopters seizing the oil. You can look at the billionaires fleeing the country. You can look at the empty vaults. And you can act. Do not let this moment pass you by. The greatest wealth transfer in human history began on January 3rd at 2 o'clock in the morning. The empire is liquidating itself. Make sure you're on the receiving end of that liquidation, not the paying end. Get out of the paper. Get out of the system. Buy physical silver while it is still legal to do so. Because tomorrow the rules might change. Tomorrow the window might close. The dollar is dead. Long live the metal. This is Asian Guy. See you on the other.
Okay, another thing that I noticed, you can't get pennies anymore. You know why? Because people are going in and getting pennies by the boatload, and they're taking out all the copper. The copper is worth 5 to 6 cents a penny. That is true copper. And even to get pennies now, they're not sending them from the mint, so pennies are pretty much obsolete now. But you can still get pennies. But this is another sign that the metals, and listen, I'm going to tell you, this is my advice. For all of you out there that are listening, what is coming, and I felt the Lord put it on my heart to tell people this as well. What is going to be valuable in the future is going to be food. Yes, if you have a lot of money, you want to might put it in silver or real estate or something like that to try to contain what you have. But what I would suggest is that you put a big chunk of anything that you have that's paper right now, whether it's dollars or whatever, you turn it out, you get out of the markets immediately, and you put it into something tangible, something that can be a store of barter, a store of trade, a store of containing what might be fleeting and inflated money system that is going to, turn into the Weimar Republic overnight. A wheelbarrow of currency couldn't even buy a loaf of bread. Invest in the staples, wheat, sugar, flour, long-term canned goods, rice, storable foods, and get things that people are going to need, that you're going to need. I mean, if you're on a little piece of property, get a tractor. All this stuff's going to become it's going to go up exponentially in terms of its value. People are going to need these things. They're going to want to trade. They're going to want to barter. If there is anything that's left, and I know that sounds, when I laugh, I don't laugh in a bad way. I'm just saying, the one thing I heard very clearly was food will be like silver. Food will be as valuable as silver and gold. So those who are stockpiling silver and gold, really think about it. When people are hungry, what do they really want? Are they going to want your silver and your gold? I mean, even rich people. Rich people might have all kinds of things. They might have stockpiled and built another barn and filled that one up with things and this and that. But what's it really going to come down to? Did you stockpile food? Do you have it was like Joseph. Joseph saw ahead. He didn't stockpile gold and silver. What did he stockpile? He stockpiled grain, food, okay? Because that's the only thing you're going to need to get through, if you're going to get through, how far you get into the future, is going to be food. Because I'm going to tell you what, the cities are all going to run out of food. You know what they're going to do? They're going to eat each other. Yeah, that's going to be bad. You don't want to be in a place where there's millions of people that are hungry. And all this stuff is happening very quickly. Now, the reason I brought up pennies was because pennies, I think, symbolizes the death of the dollar. And let's say 5-6 months ago, I saw videos on how to pull out copper pennies, right? There's a way you do it with magnets and stuff. So I kind of looked into it. And I was like, that's interesting. Because I have a forge, I have a little forge. And I thought about, once the pennies are obsolete, you can kind of melt them down and make something out of them. Or, there's little things that you can do if you ever need to make something, whether it's aluminum or copper or some other metals that you might need to make something out of. I always think about stuff like that, but so back 4 or 5, it's probably been a little bit longer than that. You could still get pennies if you went to the bank. Now they won't even let you take pennies out. They don't even have pennies for you to take. and then people have already gone through whatever's left, and they're taking all the copper out. It reminds me of what happened with silver. Remember when silver coins were recognized to be valuable? I guess it was probably even into the 80s. You could still find a lot of silver coins, silver quarters, silver dimes. Those are all very expensive now. Like a silver quarter now is worth what, like $10? $8, $7, $8, $10 for a silver quarter. I mean, that's one quarter. That's how much our currency has just completely become value. That's a sign when you see how much a dime or a quarter is worth, or an ounce of silver. That reflects what's happening in our economy. Now, silver is not where it should be. I think it should be more closer to $200 or $300 an ounce, maybe even higher. But when it goes to $200 or $300 an ounce, I'm just telling you, the currency of the dollar is dead, and you're in the apocalypse. Okay, you're in the end times if that happens, because they've controlled and manipulated the precious metal markets so much. Everything's based on your trust in a currency that is the U.S. dollar, that is supposedly backed by oil, which is no longer backed by oil. That's already done, and that whole treaty is done with the Sauds. And the world, if this is true, are going to dump the dollar all at once, that what they call Operation Sandman. Now, some are saying this is just a myth or some kind of rumor, but I wouldn't doubt it, because what is the best way to really affect the U.S. is that countries all in agreement. It's kind of like a boycott. When you boycott something, you basically bankrupt it overnight. You can basically stop everything that's going on when you have a boycott. So if they were to boycott the dollar globally, they're already de-dollarizing. I mean, Russia has already divested itself of our dollars and our bonds and whatever else. China has been doing the same thing. But they're still bound to it in some way, because they do have a lot of trade that's still in dollars that they need to make. But there has been a big, especially amongst the BRICS nations, de-dollarization or de-dollarizing, right? Getting into their currencies, gold, oil-backed currencies, precious metals. But now there's a big move toward precious metals, and that's why you're seeing the price spike so dramatically. But this is all in connection with everything that's happening geopolitically and spiritually. This is, if you really look at the Bible and what it tells you would happen, it talks about how expensive food is going to be. It talks about a bundle of wheat. I think it's like a day's wage. It talks about an exponential increase in food or just in grain. I would say this: if you're a person that has the ability to go stockpile a bags of grain, like wheat, barley, flour. I mean, that maybe not barley. I guess barley is more, you could use barley, but, rice, things like that. That's already gone up a lot anyway, but it's not that bad right now, though. It's still not bad. But, at a certain point, when you start having all these trade wars and embargoes and war breaks out, everything's going to disappear overnight. And like I told you in 2020, there's going to be shortages. There's going to be shortages of a lot of things. The supply chain is going to go down. And we weren't even at war back then. Well, I knew it was a war. That was the beginning of the war, was COVID. I knew it, though. I already knew what was going on, because I had read everything about what I told you. I told you guys everything before it happened about the secret Chinese general speech and how they would initiate this war with a bioweapon, and they would soften us up. And they're following. See, I just don't understand why this hasn't gone viral. Why hasn't that speech gone viral? Everybody should have known about that speech during COVID. But they don't. They don't get it. People don't see the big picture. And this is why they don't have the long-term view. I guess you would say it could be prophetic, but really it's just about good common sense. I would say a higher way of thinking, I guess you would say it would be getting wisdom from God, right? Your faculties are being used in the correct way, or they're operating without any distractions, without any, blindness. So you're able to see what's really going on. So pray for your ability to see what I'm talking about. Do the research and prepare yourself. I don't know how much time there is left. I think it's very late in the hour. Anything could happen at any time, and a cataclysmic change in events could precipitate very swift changes overnight. Martial law could drop just like that. And then there's no travel. You're stuck. You're not going anywhere. Let me just read some of your comments here. Yeah, be ready to go back to the basics. Exactly, Rob. We are very late in the hour, Frodo. Very late. Cash is king. Cash will be only good for a short period of time. Once everything falls apart, I'm not going to take your cash. I will not trade anything for cash. People might have a little faith in it for just a short time, but at a certain point they realize cash does not, nobody wants cash. All right, I'll give you an example. There was a guy that went to Argentina, and they have a huge amount of inflation right there. Huge. Their currency is devalued. The reason why you can't go out and buy, the reason why prices are so high is because your currency is being devalued. And it's going to precipitate in its devaluation in a very quick way. So all that paper that you have, it ain't going to be worth anything at a certain point. But this guy went to Argentina, and he took 1 Bitcoin, 1 ounce of silver, and what was the other one? 1 Bitcoin, 1 ounce of silver, and 1 ounce and some gold. And he wanted to exchange it into their currency so he could buy things, right? And he was going to travel through the whole of the country. So when he got there, he tried to exchange the Bitcoin. Nobody wanted it. Nobody. He even went to the places where all the young people are, like little cafes. One guy wanted to the Bitcoin, but he wanted to convert it into some other Bitcoin, some other crypto. He didn't even want the Bitcoin. He just wanted to convert it. He couldn't find anybody that wanted Bitcoin. He couldn't find anybody that wanted the gold, or they wanted the gold at a very discounted price by like $1,000. That was when gold was at about 2,000. He wanted to. There was one guy that would take it, one coin shop or something like that, that would take the gold ounce, but for $1,000 less. I don't know if they just didn't feel that they could use it, or they couldn't get the value out of it, or nobody would buy it. I don't know what it was, but they couldn't find anybody to buy the ounce of gold. But they did find someone that would give them the exact value for the silver coin. So when they gave the silver, they gave them exactly what it was worth, or around thereabouts. So silver, everybody wanted silver. So think about that. That's like a little test right there. Where do you recommend to move? I don't even know if it's even possible before everything hits the fan. I think it's already too late to move. You know how long it takes to move? I mean, to me, I think everything's going to hit. What I would say is, if you have a backup, if you know people that have a place, that would be probably the smart thing to do, is to try to find somebody that you know that you can have an escape kind of plan, or have a like a plan to get out of populated regions, and I say regions because even if you go to the mountains in a certain region that has millions of people, that's not going to help you because that's what everybody else is thinking is they're going to go to the mountains. Just so you know, and everybody's going to be bringing their guns and whatever else. So just so you know, we're going to go hunt deer. Yeah, right. Or if you're, and I'm talking about specifically like Californians, you know, they're all like, oh, we'll just go up to the Sierra Nevadas. Well, good luck. You know how many people are going to go up to the Sierra Nevadas? Yeah, hundreds of thousands of people will be up there. Millions. They'll try to go to the mountains. Exactly. Now, you can't eat Bitcoin anyway. Even if you had Bitcoin, who's going to want it when you have a grid down scenario or there's hacks or attacks on the infrastructure? Or how are you going to exchange it? Who's going to want it? Nobody. Nobody's going to want it. And even silver. Like, if you had a bag of wheat and an ounce of silver, you know what people would choose? I'm going to tell you right now. Nobody can eat an ounce of silver unless they know where they can exchange it very quickly and get a lot more money for it or a lot more value for, let's just say, a bag of wheat. People are going to want the food. The food. You're going to have food. And maybe for a long period of time. You know, I believe that for all those that have been a part of this channel for any length of time, you know that I've warned you at certain points very specifically and very poignantly for a reason. I didn't do it for any other reason than just to warn you. Because I'm not trying to get anything out of this. No, I'm not trying to make money off this. I'm just telling you what's happening. I did it during COVID. And anytime I report on things, I'm telling you what I believe is happening. I'm not saying I've always been right on everything, but the majority of things I have been pretty accurate on. And I think I'm pretty accurate on what I see happening right now. Grow and raise food. Exactly. That's what you got to get into. If you haven't already done that, you know, it's not too late, I don't think, to start doing things, you know, like if, you know, do what you can right now to become more self-sufficient. Have the equipment that you need. If you need to be on the go, you know, have a stove, have the ability to, you know, have like a portable stove or a fire. You need warmth. This is one of the things you need to be thinking about securing yourself is food, warmth, water, source of water or clean water. Make sure you have filters, water filters. Food, communications is very important. You got to have some kind of communication. People have said, you know, these walkie-talkies, but even those long-distance walkie-talkies, they go out according to the towers and the different carriers. But, you know, satellite phone, that's why we talked about satellite phones. Fasting is a good way to decrease your appetite. Exactly. A wood cook stove. Exactly, Rob. And I had a bunch of those that I was selling on the site. I don't even think I have any more left. I think I sold them all. Having a little portable solar panels, solar charger. You need extra power. You need a little power. Let's just say you need to charge up some batteries, or you need to charge up, or you need to. I'm telling you, like this thing right here. I know this is a little dirty, but I've used this little thing, and it's awesome. I mean, like, look. It's a little charger. It's a little solar charger. You can put a little panel on there. There's a little hookup where you can put a solar panel on there. And it's got like little plugs right here. And you can get these for like, what, $150 or $200 or something like that. It's got all your charge ports. It's got a cigarette port. It tells you it's like 99% full right now. And I've got 50 hours where I can plug something in there. And this is a battery. This is a battery bank. You know, and I could charge up, you know, laptops. I could charge up cell phones. I could probably use it to cook something on a little stove. Well, I don't know if it'll charge up a stove. The heat, whenever you have heat, it uses a lot more energy. I would say you'd probably use it for charging things up. Yeah, like batteries. A water purifier. I say purifiers. There's all kinds of them, but depends on what you want to do with it. If you want a portable one, you get the straw one. There's ones that you can get where you screw it onto a water bottle. Like you can fill up your water bottle and you can screw it onto the top. They make it so that it screws on the top, and then it's like a straw, and you just drink it. It just filters it when it goes through. There's other ways you can make water filters too without a water filter. Like let's just say you were in the woods and there's certain types of vines. Like if you could find like a wild grapevine, you can turn that into a water filter. Or if you get certain types of pine tree branches that are still, green, you gotta make sure the water flows from the just like the tree would normally send water through the tree itself. It has to go in the same direction. So like if the water's coming up the stump, so what you do is you cut off the two branches. You just cut the two branches, or you cut the branch on both sides. You put one in dirty water, and then you turn it down so that the water sucks it up, and then it puts it into another bottle. It may take a while, but it'll purify your water, completely purify it. So a branch, if you know how to do it, you can go on YouTube and figure it out. It'll purify your water. But you definitely need pure water. You need something to keep you warm. This is why we were all about the heaters and the stoves and everything. And that's why I did these little, I still have these laying around. I'm not doing anything with them, but these are like little fire starters that we did. And basically what it is, it's a rope, and it's in a wax and oil solution, and it's like a cotton. So you cut off a little piece and you light it, and it stays lit like a wick. It's like a candle. You just cut off a little piece, and that way you can start your fires. Because it's hard to start a fire sometimes. You try to start fire even with little twigs, and it takes forever to try to start it. How to make fire. There's ways that you can. You always have to have a little fire kit. See, I've still got stuff on my desk here. This is so funny. Because when I had the store, I was always looking at stuff. This right here is basically a little stove, and you've got little heat capsules that you light, and it's a fire. It'll last for like 15, 20 minutes. And it'll heat up you put a little pot on the top, and it'll heat your water, purify your water, because boiling water will heat your water, and it will also purify it. So you want to do it, and then you just close it down like this. Bam! It saves it, right? Let's see if I got anything else over here. Let's see. Yeah, that was it. And you're going to need some security. You better have some security. Security in the sense of knowing how to defend yourself or your family against someone that's trying to do something the wrong way. They're not coming in the legal way. Maybe they're trying to come in over the fence. They're not coming through the gate. So anybody that comes over the fence in the back or on the side is a thief and a robber. Remember what Jesus said? Unless they come through the gate, they're not one of the sheep. So a thief and a robber, you got to be defending against. So you better have some self-defense. A flint is good too, yeah. A flint. These are cool too. I was just going to show you this. This is cool too. This is a lighter. I don't know if you've ever seen these lighters. They're called what do they call them? They're I forget the name of them. They're basically like little torches, and it has a cord, and you can charge it. So if you had this, you could literally charge it. Why is this not shutting off? Okay. So basically what you do is you have a cord and you plug it in and it charges it up, and then now you've got fire, right? So battery fire. Like let me see. It's like a little Bic lighter, except it's a chargeable. See, it's got like a little charging port right there, and you just plug it in, it charges it, and then, bam, you've got a little torch. You can start a fire with it. Plasma, that's it. Plasma. Thank you very much, Uncommon AT. Plasma torch. Everybody should have like a little plasma torch or something like that. Or at least you better know how to make fire. You better know how to make fire. And I can make a fire with a spark, with one little spark. If I had 2 pieces of flint or a piece of quartz, you know how if you hit a piece of quartz, you'll see a little spark come out? If you can get one spark, it's called, well, you do it out of cotton. What you do is you have a little tin of cotton. The cotton is, it's been, there's a name for it. Well, what you do is you put it in a fire and you basically turn it to like a charcoal. Like the cotton turns to like a charcoal. It burns up all the fuel, but it still leaves like a shell that's really like very lightweight. It's almost like a feather. And if one little spark falls on it, one spark, it could be just one little spark. All you do is that one little spark and you blow on it and it'll turn into like a big red coal. And when it turns into a coal, you stick some, something on there that'll catch fire, and then it'll catch fire. That's how the old timers used to do it. They'd have a little tin, and I forget what they call it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? What the name of that is? Not a Zippo lighter. This is in case you don't have a lighter. You should always have like backups, sources of fire. I didn't mean that it's useless to start planning. I'm just saying if you didn't actually buying a piece of property, I almost think it's too late to do something like that at this point, because it takes it's a process to go through to buy a piece of property. I think all hell's going to break loose very quickly. Char cloth, yeah, that's it. By request only, it's char cloth. It's a tinderbox, yeah, but it's a char cloth. Yeah, by request only has it right. So char cloth is basically like cotton cloth, and you put it in a tinderbox, and then you put a hole. That's like if you have like a little Altoids box or you have a little tin box, you put a hole in the box or a couple holes. You fill it up with a bunch of cotton. You can put cotton swabs in there. You can put wrapped cotton towel or shirt or anything. And then what you do is you throw it into a fire, and the fire will ignite all of the combustible material in the cotton, and then it basically turns it into a shell, a very lightweight shell, which they call char cloth, right? The cloth becomes very lightweight. It's almost like a charcoal, except it's just really delicate. It's like a feather. You can just break it if you put your hand on it. And you take that char cloth after it's done, and you put it in a tin. And then if you ever need if all you have is a spark, one little spark lands on it, and then you blow on it, and it turns into a big coal. So that's what the old timers used to use. It was char cloth. You can do it with toilet paper, anything that's cotton. If it's cotton, you can do it. And toilet paper, I've done it with toilet paper, and toilet paper is really cool because it's really thin and really lightweight. And if you wrap it up really tight, and then you turn it into char toilet paper. It's not cloth, it's like a toilet paper. But most people do it with cotton cloth. Like if you have a cotton shirt, it's got to be completely 100% cotton. Or like this. This is a rope. It's a cotton rope. If you had this without putting the wax on it, because this has wax and oil. So there's a wax and an oil on this. But if you just had a regular cotton rope, and you stuck the cotton rope in and you burned it, you basically take all the fuel out of it. It turns it into a cotton almost like a cotton charcoal. And then that little bit, you just take a little piece off. Like I said, you put a little spark, one spark. It only takes one spark. You don't got to have one of those big things that shoot out a bunch of sparks. All you need is one little spark to fall on it. I've done it where I had a rock and I just went with a rock until I got a spark, and that spark fell right on the char cloth. And that one little spark turned into a roaring fire by just blowing on it. Just like that. But it's good to have one of those magnesium strikers. I would say a magnesium striker is good. If you ever lose your lighter, or your lighter goes bad, or you don't have any matches, you need to know how to make fire. You better know how to make fire, or be like the Flintstones and learn how to, get a piece of wood and keep, twisting it until it turns into smoke. But everybody needs to have fire. Otherwise, you'll be subject to the elements. You won't be able to purify your water. You won't be able to cook your food. You have to have the ability to survive off-grid. Cheetos. Non-toxic, but toxic fumes. Really, yeah, it's like Cheetos. They look like little Cheetos. That's a good way to explain it, Lynn. When you put this in the fire and you let the fire consume all of the material, it'll turn it into like a lightweight Cheeto. It's kind of what it feels like. It's like a lightweight Cheeto. And Cheetos are like really thin and airy. That's what this will turn into. But it's highly flammable. So even one little spark that lands on it will absorb it, and it'll turn it red. And all you do is just blow on it a little bit like that. And then it'll turn really red, bright red. And then you stick that little bright red coal. It turns into like a little coal. You stick it into the fire or into some kindling or something, and it'll start it up. Boom. He started it with sticks, really? And he lived in an Adobe teepee? That's cool. Yeah, you can make homemade filters out of charcoal, sand, rocks. Yeah. And you can also put like weeds in there, or like grass. Grass is also good at, like, just layer it in a bottle. But all these things are techniques that you need to know how to survive off grid if ever you had to. In case of an emergency, you need to know someone that knows how to do it, at least. How to hunt, how to dress a deer, how to cook it, how to fish, how to clean a fish, how to set a fishing line, like if you wanted to just set it and forget it, like that Ronco guy. Set it and forget it. But wait, Bob, there's more. When you come back, you pull in your line and there's a whole bunch of fish. And then you're not going to starve to death. You need to learn how to make your own food. The food in the stores anyway is all bad and toxic, and they're all trying to kill us all anyway. Oh my gosh, the U.S. Department of Labor said this. Can you believe this? Total and completely. That is absolutely crazy. You got to be kidding me. Look at it. Look at this. Look at this post by the U.S. Department of Labor. What do you think of that? Trust the plan. Trust Trump. Where did you hear that before? Trust Sessions. Trust Barr. Trust the plan. Disinformation is necessary sometimes. Trust Q. Right. This is all messaging to the Q believers. Can you believe that they're doing that? Absolutely crazy. Wow. I'll look it up. I'm going to look it up to make sure it's real. That was on X. Let's see. Department. I'll confirm this of Labor. Let's see if we can find that. No way. Let's just see. This can't be. You cannot be serious. They're putting out a lot of AI stuff. The nation needs you. Build the future. This totally reminds me of like pre-World War II. So reminiscent of like what they were doing right prior to World War II. Look at this. Your nation needs you. Send your children to sacrifice for the nation. We will appreciate your sacrifice. Offer them up here. We'll have a recruiter come out and sign them up. Uncle Sam needs you and appreciates your sacrifice. Remember, you are an American. Oh, I almost forgot. I was American. Was I American? Oh, yeah, I am. I'm American. One homeland, one people, one heritage. The motherland. The fatherland. We are going to win. America first. Really? America first? Oh, cool. Okay. Our nation is worth fighting for. Really? Is it really worth fighting for? Serious? All right, I believe you. Hold the line. Hold the line. 4 hours ago, President Trump is uniting the coalition. See, I'm just looking at this. This is crazy. Okay, so 5 hours ago, economy. It's the economy, stupid. Remember that? Remember that phrase? It's the economy, stupid. Who was that did that? Was that Bill Clinton? Isn't that how Bill Clinton became president? His catchphrase was, "It's the economy, stupid." Six hours ago, no president has cared more about hardworking Americans than President Trump. That's why hardworking Americans have no money right now. He keeps promising us all these stimmies and never gives them. $5,000 check, that never came. $2,000 check, that never came. No taxes. They're going to get rid of the tax system. Has that happened yet? And even if that happens, you're getting taxed in every other way through tariffs and everything else. Oh, yeah, here it is. Trust the plan. Trust Trump. Trust the plan. There it is right there. U.S. Department of Labor. Trust the plan. Trust Trump. Oh, look at that. Patriotic soldier. Trust the plan. One of one. Historic. I love these AI images, man. The future belongs to the patriot, not the globalist. The Declaration of Independence. Our country was built and founded upon 33-degree Masons who were deists, who actually were holding to some kind of prophetic code that they ultimately, the mystery religions predicted America would ultimately fulfill. This is not a Christian nation. Yes, there were a lot of Christians that were in the nation, but weren't of it. If they were real Christians, they wouldn't have been of it. They were living in it. If you're a Christian, yes, you should be in a nation and represent the God of heaven and your citizenship that is in heaven. But you're not of this world, and you shouldn't identify yourself as a political religion. You're not politicizing your religion. God has sent Christ to die for the whole world. That includes communists, that includes fascists, that includes socialists, that includes the capitalists, and even the tech giants that want to rule the world, and every other faith out there. Jesus died for them. They may not understand it or know it, but anyways, there you go. Trust the plan. And if I remember, they also said to trust Sessions, which ended up not working out. And then they said to trust Bill Barr, and that didn't work out. And then they said disinformation is necessary. So sometimes we put out disinformation so that we can confuse the enemy. And obviously, you're not the enemy, but you're still confused because you're not supposed to know what the real plan is. But still, trust the plan. It's all about trusting the plan. What are they saying? Let's listen in and see what they're saying here.
As it pertains to Greenland, we're showing you some vantage points, some pictures there of the island. We do know that just yesterday, President Trump continued to press for U.S. control of Greenland, telling reporters, quote, "We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not," saying that if we don't, Russia or China will be able to take over the island. This came as President Trump was sitting at that round table with oil executives at the White House to discuss investments in Venezuela. The president has repeatedly said that he wants to take over Greenland either by buying the autonomous island territory or by using military force. And to talk a lot more about what we're seeing there with the president, some of his motivation, and what potentially is going to happen ahead of the Trump administration meeting with some of these Danish leaders next week, I want to bring in political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox.
Good to see you, Christina.
All right, it's a lot to unpack here as it pertains to Greenland. We know that this is not a new conversation. President Trump has been very vocal over his last administration as well, speaking about the importance of Greenland. But I first want to get with you just to sort of level set. Can you sort of explain to people how Greenland is set up? It is an autonomous nation, but it's also somewhat controlled and working with the Danish government as well. Can you sort of get into that initially so people can get an idea of how that politically goes?
Sure. To level set, first of all, Greenland is an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. And Greenland, when you look at Greenland on a flat map, it looks very, very large. It is, but it's got a population, Christina, of about 58,000 people. So from a population standpoint, not very large. It is about 25% larger than our largest state, which is Alaska. And it was an important post during World War II because it sits between the United States and the Arctic, and therefore is in an area where it would have and does have some Russian influence and some Chinese influence. And currently, we have one listening post there that is run by the Space Force, United States Space Force, for the purposes of monitoring missile activity and potential attacks from Russia or China. So, all in all, it's an interesting place, mostly ice, or much of it ice, and not really inhabitable. And there's a picture of
Queens, New York is the most diverse.
But in any case, I think Donald Trump is of the mind that because it's a very important territory in terms of national defense, that he wants to make a deal with the Danes on it. And by the way, here's an interesting thing to know. The residents of Greenland would be very happy to be their own country and would like to have sovereignty. About 85% of them in a recent poll said, we'd rather not be aligned with Denmark. We're happy to be our own country. So these are all things in the mix, but at the core of it, Donald Trump sees it as one more piece of a protection ring for the United States, which includes, as we see in Latin America and other places.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, just the history of it being involved as an important post in world wars in the past as well. But you brought up something there about the Greenlanders themselves. We do know that Greenland's leadership is now pushing back on President Trump, and then the administration called for the U.S. to take control of the island. In fact, we heard from the Greenland Prime Minister and four party leaders. They released a statement just last night, according to Fox News, saying we don't want to be Americans. We don't want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders. And so I have to ask you, when it comes to what the dynamic is right now, even between Greenland and the Danish people, where do they stand? This sort of agreement that the two countries have, how has it been so strong for over 100 years at this point? And what is really keeping Greenland tied to the Danish nation?
Well, I think the Danes have controlled Greenland, and to the extent that it's been a benign sort of relationship, they have gone along with it. Denmark has 3 of these autonomous territories, Greenland being one of them. And so it's just been going on for a lot of years. But as you point out, and we did read those statements, Greenland wants to be its own country. Greenland, by the way, is protected by NATO. And so that is a factor as well. You heard one of the Danish ministers saying that if the United States were to take possession of Greenland, it would be the end of NATO. Well, I don't know about that, but I think the rhetoric from Donald Trump is to somehow find, and no surprise here, a deal on Greenland, but again, as you point out, and we know, the Greenlander people want to have their own country. And again, 58,000 people, so it's not very big, but they want their own governance, their own autonomy. They speak their own language, as a matter of fact, Greenlandic. And so it's been this large place in recent world history for many, many years, and they want their independence.
You're right. And so you also mentioned the several bases that are there under the U.S. government. In fact, the U.S. has had access to Greenland. This was under the 1951 Defense Agreement. Yes. And Denmark and Greenland would say that they would continue to be quite happy at the time to accommodate a beefed up American military presence. And so when it comes to what's next, President Trump, very vocal. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to have some of these conversations with Danish leaders next week. Well, how is the administration going to focus on these talks? How are they going to approach them? Is it going to be from a buying standpoint, or may we see some of those pushes in there, as you've mentioned, the conversation around possible military action to obtain the island?
Yeah, I don't see the military action at all, Christina. I think this is Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump does, which is try to push the envelope as far as he can and then kind of back off it and say, hey, really, this is a transaction. This is like the Louisiana Purchase from France or something. And it's that's a transaction. That's a deal. The problem is, if there's a problem, is that it would be a 3-party transaction. I mean, you've got the Danes, of course, who have control of Greenland, but you have the Greenland people. And so somehow this deal would have to include a real change for the Greenlandic people and Greenlanders, and for something that benefits the Kingdom of Denmark. That's what Marco Rubio will be speaking with the Danish folks about, to see whether there's a quote-unquote deal in there someplace.
And so as we're looking ahead as well here, Brian, that conversation is obviously going to be very important. But overall, we were hearing there, as President Trump was answering the question and answer session of the meeting that he had, that round table with oil executives talking about Venezuela, there have been a lot of influences on that conversation, and also putting that in with Greenland, saying that the U.S. did decide to take some sort of military action that did change the course of how Venezuela is being governed, wondering if that would possibly happen. Can you sort of, again, you just said that you don't think the military action is going to happen, but why are these two conversations coming together at this time?
Because I think the world's looking at the United States and frankly wondering what the plan is. I think they understand that Donald Trump, who says and does what he says he'll do, is putting a protective ring essentially around the United States in Latin America. And now you're hearing about it in Greenland, where he worries, and we should all worry about Russian and Chinese influence there. And he is saying, hey, we need to have a wider ring to protect the United States. And, you know, the world's getting smaller and smaller. And so I think his calculus is then you move the lines out further to create a larger ring. Now, it's also true that, you know, Russia sits across the straits from Alaska, so they're pretty close to us there, and in other places around the world. But I think to the extent that some.
All right, guys, this is Los Angeles right here. We're gonna just turn that off here because I'm just gonna start chatting with you a little bit more. The whole Greenland thing. This is Los Angeles. There's a lot of protests going on. Let me just see if I can find them all. That's a pretty large protest. I'm kind of wondering if something's going to come out of that. This is NBC LA. I believe that's NBC LA. Let me see. Yeah. So this is a protest in Los Angeles in response to what happened in Minnesota. Let's see if we can find some more live feeds here. This is happening right now. That's a live feed there. This one here is Minneapolis. This is a live feed in Minneapolis right here. It's in real time right there. Real time, Minneapolis. So there you go on that. Let's just take a look at this one. This was Los Angeles. Oh, look what they're doing here. Oh, wow. Wow, look at that. This is from a live cam. Looks like there's something going on, like they're breaking in or something. Let me see. Something's going on there. Whenever you got cameras like that just watching, something's going on there. You got security guards there. They're looking inside for some reason. What happened there? Something's going on there. Let me get myself out of the way here. So I'm going to scroll back and see if I can see what went in there. There's something that went in there. Oh, you can't scroll back. Gee. Sometimes you can scroll back, but this one you can't. So this is a helicopter cam in Los Angeles, California, and I'm guessing this is probably, this may in fact be some kind of ice facility, maybe, or no? I can't tell. Let's see, we might have another feed here. Let's see. All right, this feed here is... this is in... Okay, the one on the left is where we're at right there. Look at everybody's right there. The one on the left.
Majority of the time only go live.
I think this is actually the best feed right here because this is like showing what's really going on right here from a higher angle. This is probably all in California. See, that's the same area right there we're looking at, right in the middle. I don't know what they're showing off in there. Everybody's looking inside there for some reason, and I'm not sure what it is that is drawing people to look inside there. Uh-oh, those guys look like they're up to no good. What is it that has them looking inside? I'm trying to figure out what it is that they're looking inside there for. Is it ICE agents? Are there ICE agents in there? What's going on? The helicopter camera is focused right in on this. So there must be something really going on inside there. Uh-oh. So now they're all running. See, they see something coming. They all ran for a reason. There must be somebody. Why'd they all run? Is there police in there? I still don't have any clue why they were taking video of people inside. Maybe it had to do with the, I bet you anything there's ICE officers in there. That guy's gonna get arrested, watch. That guy that's hanging out in the back there, he's gonna get arrested. They're gonna sneak out and get him. He's gonna get caught right in the middle. That guy that's behind the pillar. I'll bet you they arrest him, watch.
Why would you arrest anyone? Is that even legal? And you guys stay silent, but you guys can't silence us.
Once you leave, you can't come back in.
State troopers? Those are state troopers. State troopers from Minnesota. Minnesota state troopers. Oh, this guy got sprayed? Oh, they sprayed everybody with, that's why everybody ran out, because they got sprayed with pepper spray. You see how they're trying to help their eyes right now? So all those guys that went running got sprayed with pepper spray. That's... This is Minnesota here. This is Minnesota.
We are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of Park and 3rd Street, Chicago and 3rd Street, Umbria, Canopy Hotel. We are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes Park and 3rd Street, Chicago and 3rd Street.
Get up.
The natives are getting restless. I'm trying to figure out if this is coming from Minnesota. Yeah, it's coming from Minnesota. So the sound is... Oh, wait, this is California. Nope. This might be
Assembly under the laws of the state of Minnesota. Minnesota law prohibits maintaining a public nuisance or participating in an unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of Park and 3rd Street, Park in Washington, Cambria Hotel. You should leave the area south or west from this location. Thank you for your cooperation.
No, you're supposed to say, thank you for your attention to this matter.
Minnesota prohibits maintaining a public nuisance or participating in an unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of 3rd Street Park, Washington and Park. You should leave the area south or west from this location. If you do not leave this area, you will be arrested.
Thank you for your attention to this
Thank
matter.
you for your cooperation.
No, it's attention to this matter. Now, back to the music. Everybody back to dancing.
All these people are stuck in their cars.
I think I'm going to get me some more coffee. I'll be back.
out of control.
We have some breaking news now out of Minneapolis. Right now, we are getting a new look at the ICE-involved shooting that killed a 37-year-old woman in an SUV. Renee.
Come talk to us later.
Minnesota nice and just leave our neighborhood? Red Batons, join in on us. Your allegiance is not to Washington, it's to our state. This is First Amendment. Hope you guys can
frontal lobe isn't developed yet, I see. You're just taking it like a good boy, huh?
Minnesota law prohibits maintaining a public nuisance or participating in an unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of Park and 3rd Street, Chicago and 3rd Street, Umbria, Canopy Hotel. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes Park and 3rd Street, Chicago and 3rd Street.
Which way do you want us to go, bud? We just want to get out.
Assembly under the laws of the state of Minnesota. Minnesota law prohibits maintaining a public nuisance or participating in an unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of Park and 3rd Street, Park in Washington, Cambria Hotel. You should leave the area south or west from this location. Thank you for your cooperation. Minnesota prohibits maintaining a public nuisance or participating in an unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes the area of 3rd Street Park, Washington and Park. You should leave the area south or west from this location. If you do not leave this area, you will be arrested. Thank you for your cooperation.
All right, guys. Robert here, guys. I think I'm going to just cut the feed because it doesn't look like anything's really happening. And I just got back. So what we'll do is if anything does pop off, any major news event, we'll definitely be back. And it's very possible with all the things that are happening right now. We're going to kind of focus on a few other things right now and make sure that we don't miss something else that's going down. This is just kind of going to drone on, I'm sure. But if anything does happen to go off crazy, we'll definitely send out the alerts. If you're not on our new app, you got to get connected to the app because that will give you a text alert or push notification. We're not sending out text alerts right now, so just get the push notification by having the app. If you got the new app, you have to have downloaded it within the last week. That first app that we told you guys about like 4 or 5 weeks ago, make sure you get rid of that app. Take that one off. Don't have that on your front of your phone. That was an old app that didn't work out. Okay, this app is the one that we invested into, and it's a lot better. It's a lot better than what we had. And you want to make sure that app is on your phone, and you will get a push notification. All you got to do is search Apple or Android store. Just search BP News and download it, and that way you'll get alerted. Anytime we go live, you'll get the alert, okay? And in the meantime, guys, we'll see you back when breaking news happens once again here at BP News channel. God bless, and hopefully they don't burn down the city. Hope it's not one of those mostly peaceful protests, because those mostly peaceful protests get very hot. Just like our economy. It's hot, hot, hot. It's a roaring economy. Everybody wants to be us. Anyways, guys, I'll see you back in a little bit, okay? God bless. Yeah, I just got my coffee to quit. Exactly, Josh. Yeah, no, I've got some things I should be doing right now. And I don't want to waste too much time on here if it's not necessary, but I want to make sure I focus on the most important things. Plus I got things I got to do at home. So I don't want to just let this roll. It doesn't look like nothing's going on anyway. So we'll talk to you guys soon, okay? God bless.